Hello and welcome to the Guitar Hang Podcast. I'm your host, Jon Stankorb. This is Season 8 and Episode 2, and man, I'm seriously excited about today's guest. He's a killer guitarist, producer, musical director, tech mastermind, and hands down one of the most inspiring musicians out there right now. You know him from Blue Öyster Cult and those epic Band Geek performances on YouTube, as well as sharing the stage with legendary Jon Anderson of Yes. Today we're hanging with the incomparable Richie Castellano. We're talking about his journey from classic rock stages, the magic behind the viral Band Geeks videos, and what it's like playing alongside rock royalty, and how he manages to keep it fun and authentic. Buckle up, this episode is loaded with stories, riffs, and plenty of laughs. Let's dive in. You know, it's funny, I was just scrolling through some stuff, and I was just listening to a clip from 2014 of you and your dad doing Drift Away by Dobie Gray.
Oh, yeah. My dad does a great job with that song.
Yeah, and this might be a fun place to start. I don't know, we wouldn't be here talking if it weren't for your dad, I suppose. He was the guy that really did it for you, got you kind of the inspiration to what you've become.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, having had several folks on the show that have talked about the relationship between themselves and their dad and how they followed in their respective footsteps. Gordon Kennedy and his dad. It's just a really cool thing to have, you know, that kind of thing coming up as a kid where you get, you know, the love of baseball is great, or sports, movies, that kind of thing. But when you're able to have the musical thing, that seems like a very special bond.
Yeah, my dad in high school was an athlete. He was one of the fastest guys in his school. He ran track. I think he was on the football team. So he was really hoping to be able to play catch with me, but I turned out to be the worst athlete in my family. And so we settled on music, which is so we have something we can bond over. It became clear that was going to be our thing, and not baseball, which is, you know, which I think he's come to terms with. But luckily, I have a younger sister who's very athletic, and so he could play catch with her. And so, but he can't jam on 12-bar blues with her. So there's pros and cons.
That's right. Yeah. You can't. No child can be everything to their parent. But I just think that's a special thing for to have, whether it's, you know, a daughter and a father, or just having that in your family as you're coming up. It's a really special thing that's timeless, because, you know, as we get older, the athlete side of us can diminish a little bit due to you know, aging and, you know, knees and other ailments, but guitar is an evergreen thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And the other thing that's so cool is Long Island must have spawned more great guitar players and musicians than any.
Well, I'm from Staten Island.
Oh, okay. For some reason,
I'm about an hour and change away from Long Island, but it's okay to be lumped in. A lot of my very talented friends are from Long Island, and I play in Blue Öyster Cult, which is a Long Island band, so it's
right.
It counts.
Yeah. So was that, as you were coming up, was it one of those things like in Staten Island, every other garage, you could hear sounds of bands practicing, or was it more of I don't know what era, when you came up playing?
Well, I think what it was is in school, in junior high and in high school, the music kids would sort of gravitate towards each other.
Yeah.
And I really hit the jackpot in meeting some incredibly talented people, especially in high school. That's where I met Andy Ascalise, and I met Andy Graziano, who are currently part of the Band Geeks.
Yeah.
And I just kind of lucked out of meeting these guys, and we all played together and pushed each other, and I think we made each other better. And if it were the case where, oh, I'm the best guy in my school, you'd be prone to coasting. You know, you could say, oh, I don't have to really work that hard. But in the school I went to Curtis High School in Staten Island, which was already the unofficial performing arts school of where I live,
Yeah.
and we had quite a few very talented guys aside from Andy and myself. Andy Graziano went to a different school, but so there was always this feeling that, oh, I really can't slack because there's a lot of talented people around me, and I better come prepared and I better keep improving, because you would see on a weekly basis all the kids around you just getting better. You know, oh, this guy just learned how to play this piece, and this guy learned this solo from this record, and you're going, wow, these teenagers are playing way above their level,
Yeah.
and so it was a sink or swim situation, and just hearing how good, especially Andy Ascalise, who was the youngest of us, who just was naturally so talented, and at 15 years old could play 3 4 instruments already, and he was great on all of them, and just seeing that was inspiring and motivating, and we got into a band pretty quickly. I asked him to join my band the first day of high school. The first day of him, Andy's a year younger than me, so the first day he came to my school, I heard him play, and I asked him to join the band, and I had to trick him into thinking he was joining a jazz band because that's all he was interested in playing at the time.
Yeah.
So, my my mental gymnastics to make that work was, well, I like progressive rock, and Keith Emerson can play jazz, so therefore
Right.
we're a jazz band. So
Right.
that's that, and that was the bridge between us, because um, I liked Yes, I liked Iron Maiden, I liked the Beatles, and he was listening to Chick Corea and Oscar Peterson and stuff like that. He was and Miles Davis. He was brought up on jazz, and that was his training. So that background actually comes in handy, because a lot of the music we play, especially on the drums, he has the sensitivity of a jazz drummer, where he's listening and he's aware of everything that's happening, and that's from his training. Also, out of all the drummers I've ever played with, Andy is probably the most aware of what's happening musically, because he can play all the instruments.
Right.
He knows if someone goes to a different note on the bass, he knows what's happening, and it's great. It's great to play with someone with that level of complete awareness, where sometimes you play with people who are only aware of what they're playing, which is fine. That's great if people are honed in on their parts, but I find I have a more pleasant time when I'm playing with people who really know what everybody's supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
and that's not really a talent thing. It's an experience thing, um, because some people who maybe don't have crazy chops, after you play a bunch of gigs, you just know what everybody's supposed to be doing, and they'll come up to you and say, "Oh, you didn't do this part right," and that just comes with experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to me, because I've been watching the various videos of the Band Geeks, it seems like besides the fun factor that you guys are having, there seems like an incredible rapport and uh, a distinct connection that you guys have been playing an awful lot together.
Yeah, we've been doing this since we're 15 years old, and I'm 45 now, so
Yeah.
it's been a long time. Uh, yeah, and we constantly roast each other, and we all have pretty thick skin, because it's just it's a it's a chop busting fest whenever we get together, and we're always trying to make each other laugh.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And maybe to our detriment sometimes, because we goof around too much, and it's just weird that we all developed this sense of humor together, where we'll try to do very challenging stuff, but we take the music seriously, but we take everything else unseriously. Uh, and that's just this weird melding of this, especially Andy Ascalise, Andy Graziano, and myself, of how we developed as friends.
Right.
Apart from music, it's that we're always, there's inside jokes, and we're always trying to crack each other up. And the problem is we do it on stage with Jon sometimes, and it's really not the time to do it, but we can't help it. And Andy will throw in a little drum thing that he knows only I'm going to hear, trying to get a reaction out of me, and I'll turn around at him and give him a face. And this is all things you don't want to do while you're playing Awaken, but we do it anyway. So that's
right. Yeah.
But that's from just being friends for so long.
Yeah. Well, I think that had to be very refreshing for Jon coming in, because, I mean, obviously, besides the fact that you played the music beautifully, the fact that you had this camaraderie and had come up together. I think whether it's Jon Anderson, you, me, any of the guys in the Band Geeks, that's the thing that we always want, is to just be in a band with a bunch of people that we really love, and that you're having a great time, but it's like a gang of people. And for Jon to be able to come into that, where there was it was solid. It wasn't like, he's putting together an audition thing where he's hiring, okay, I'm going to have a cattle call for some guitar players and some keyboard, you know what I mean? Where it's kind of an assembled thing. You guys are already an established thing, and that's a very special thing to come into. Very attractive.
I think that attitude I just mentioned, of us constantly trying to crack each other up, I think that's one of Jon's favorite things about us.
Yeah.
Because we're always laughing, we're always just messing around, and I'm sure that would drive other people crazy on the road. Being on the road with people it's a strange 5-6 way marriage where you have to find a way to get along. And I'm sure if someone was very serious, they would find our antics annoying. But Jon is really into it. Jon's right in there with the jokes and having fun. And sometimes he'll pop his head into our dressing room and say, he'll say something like, "Stop having so much fun." and he's told me that a few times. He said, "My favorite thing about you guys is you're having fun with this. You're enjoying being around each other." Right. And we are. Even when there's an issue, like, if we have a disagreement about who's supposed to be playing what or what sound to use, which happens, that's normal. But we do it in a way to be kind, but playfully roasting of each other. We don't want to let each other off the hook too much. Right. There has to be a little bit of embarrassment that goes with it. But listen, you know this. I'm sure you have friends for a long time, and you know what you can get away with each other. And with us, we're always trying to push that line a little bit. And that's where I think that's where our chemistry lies.
Yeah, it's that sixth love language of teasing each other and roasting each other. I mean, and guys, really, that's what we do,
Yep.
Because we know, you can't, that's the great thing about being in this situation. You can't bullshit each other, because you've known each other for 30 years, since you're 15. So you kind of know everything there is to know about that person. And it's a comforting thing to know that they have your back, even though they don't mind giving you a little shit every once in a while. So.
Oh yeah, and it's constantly that, which is, I like that. I kind of like that environment of, if one guy plays a wrong note on stage, everybody knows it, and you look around and you get a look, okay, you got me. I find that refreshing, and what I like about it the most is that even into middle age now, we're still pushing each other.
Right.
And it's very easy in a band or a musical setting to become apathetic, where it's, okay, we got it, let's just go do the gig and get it over with. We're constantly trying to troubleshoot things, saying, in this song, that transition could have been better. What are we doing? What can we do to make that better? And we're doing, as Chris Clark, our keyboard player, would say, we're doing self-diagnostics every week. Right. Every sound check, the first question I ask everybody is, what did we screw up on the last gig? and how can we fix that? And we're always doing it. But we do it in a way where it's it's not, we're not accusing someone or blaming someone. It's just like it's a group effort, and we want to all work on squashing the bugs, as I say. Like let's get this as good as it can be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The self-diagnostic thing is something that is it. We all do it whenever we get together as in bands that we're in, and that's usually what we're talking about. Is we're not celebrating the things that went right. We're talking about the things that we messed up, the technical things that may have been happening while well, there could be a million things technically speaking, but I was kind of curious with when the Band Geeks had started out, how deep was your repertoire of Yes tunes prior to?
Well, when we started out the Band Geeks, it was a podcast. We had no idea or ambition to be a band. We just wanted to be a bunch of people talking to each other, musicians talking about geeky things. And that was my idea, because when you're on the road and you meet different musicians, everybody's got a thing they're into. And I know a lot of musicians have a very cool exterior. You know, they look like rock stars. They live this life, which is very interesting. But there's always one thing that I would think of as a nerdy little secret. And that was what I wanted it to be, because meeting so many people on the road, I would find that. For example, I was fortunate enough for a couple of years to be in a band with Rudy Sarzo, who played with Quiet Riot, Dio, Ozzy Osbourne. And I found out from him that he was a 3D animator. And he knew how to do video editing and video effects. And I learned how to do all that from him. And to me, like, I wouldn't think of Rudy Sarzo, metal god, as someone who knew that stuff. But I found that fascinating. And it was so cool that he was willing to share that with me. Yeah. Or other people I would meet and they say, oh, you know, I've seen every episode of Star Trek Voyager. Like, oh my God, I had no idea. And that would be something we talk about. And I said, that's what I wanted the show to be. But the show morphed into a band because we were on a network called Riotcast, and my friend Rob Sprance was one of the people who ran that network, and he told me, all right, I get the concept of guys in bands talking about geeky things, but you really should play a song for each episode. Yeah. And as you who you are also a content creator, you know that as soon as you bring a full band into a room, the workload just quadruples. Now I got to mic everybody up. Got to make sure we're multi-tracking. I need multiple cameras. I have to record it, but you have to mix it now, and you have to edit it now, and it just it turns into just people talking. You know, maybe do a quick level check, and then you're done. But once you bring a band in, okay, now it's a week or two of post-production. You have to, or else it's going to sound like garbage. So I wasn't too thrilled with that, but he was right, because what I started seeing was that the band performances were vastly outpacing the actual podcast conversations.
Right.
So over time, it was clear that we needed to pivot from being a podcast to being a band, and the people on YouTube just started calling us the Band Geeks. So, and I've been in bands for, like you said, the last 30 years, and there was all different kinds of names, some better than others. I wouldn't have thought of the Band Geeks as a band name for us, but our audience picked it for us. And I said, okay, that's kind of cool. We're the Band Geeks now. I've seen some comments online saying they should really change their name now that they're playing with Jon Anderson. But I'm thinking, you guys picked this name, and I think it's fun. I'm with it. Let's do it. It's cool, and I'm very happy to be a Band Geek. The Yes catalog was a holdover from high school when I tricked Andy Ascalise into joining my jazz band, and we did a few Yes covers. Yep. I think in high school we did Roundabout, we did Siberian Khatru, Yours Is No Disgrace. I think we tried to do Close to the Edge, but never could really get through it. And there might have been others. I'm sure we did Owner of the Lonely Heart a few times. And Perpetual Change we would mess with. We would play parts of all these songs together and jam on them. But I think we actually did Siberian Khatru, and we did Yours Is No Disgrace a few times. So we had maybe half a dozen Yes songs in the back of our heads that we knew. But when it came down to learning them for this tour, we had to actually learn them correctly, because there's a difference, and I see you're a guitar player, when you learn a song when you're 15 to when you learn it when you're 45. When you're 15, you learn it wrong. You learn it you have undeveloped ears, you get close enough, or you find maybe some transcription that's probably wrong, and you learn it off, or you have a guitar teacher who's also learning it wrong and teaching it to you. So some of these songs I've relearned 4 or 5 times, because every time you listen to it, you go, oh, I don't think I'm playing that right. That sounds a little different than what I'm playing. Or you see a live version and you say, that's where he's playing that? You look on the neck, I'm down here, he's up here. I better relearn this. So we're always relearning how to do things to make them a little more accurate or more cohesive as a band.
Yeah. I don't think that, I don't know if you do much teaching, but besides touring, I do a bit of teaching. I teach some adult rock classes at the School of Rock, but 99.9% of the students have no idea of the forensics that go into playing it the proper way for performance, where people are paying for a ticket to come see you perform. There's all sorts of levels that are just fine, but if you're on stage with Jon Anderson in front of a paying audience, the level of polish that has been put into your performance, I don't think a lot of people can fully appreciate about professional musicians that have to maybe learn it a couple of times based on doing forensic work. I remember learning the lap steel. I've got a lap steel here for And You and I.
Yeah.
And just trying to figure out, well, first of all, I got to get this tuning right. So that was a layer of forensics. And then there's the part where Steve is playing the lap steel bit, and then it goes into this Leslie-ish sounding thing. How am I going to do that? Because I can't back off to my guitar. But these arcane procedures that we go through to get it's like we're so driven, and when you're surrounded by people that have that, it's very. It's the most joy I've found is when everybody gets it right, and that feeling of, yes, this is spot on. And I guess that's what Jon must have heard when he heard you guys doing this. He heard the end result of, oh my gosh, these guys have really done their fucking homework.
Yeah, he said that to me in our first conversation. It was actually our second conversation, because I met him at a NAMM show when I was 16. I have a photo with him that's pretty funny, and I showed it to him, and it blew his mind. But no, our first real conversation, he said, "You guys sound like '70s Yes."
Yeah,
that's what he told me, and which was an insane thing to hear from your hero.
Yeah,
and I'll listen back to the recording he was referencing versus how we play it now. I thought our Close to the Edge on YouTube was pretty good when I finished it, but after playing it for 3 years, going back and listening to it, I say, oh my God, we play it so much better now. We're really dialed in with it, and that's from rehearsal after rehearsal of just shaving off the little bits that shouldn't be there, sculpting it, I guess, and saying, oh, we didn't quite get that, but that's not really right. Or can we do this better? Or maybe we should change the tempo of this. Maybe that sound's not the right sound for this. And we're constantly doing that. And when you bring people, like some of the guys in the band will bring their wives or their family members, and they'll look at us, play a show that outwardly seemed great, and then hear us in the dressing room afterwards saying, "Got to fix that, got to fix this," and they'll go, "What show are you watching?"
Yeah.
Because outwardly it's fine, and yet it's fine, but for us, we're always trying to find the little thing that we could have done better. And what what stinks about that is it robs you some of the joy of saying, "Oh, what a great show that was." And look, we never do that. We come off stage and then go right into diagnostic mode. We say, "Okay, this was okay. This is what, how can we make that change more, smoother or something?" We're always doing that. And yeah, I guess it's a pessimistic way of looking at it, but I think it's fun to aspire to have a perfect show. We know we're not going to have a perfect show, and that's one of the things I say to everybody before we go on tour and we're rehearsing. I said, we're never going to have a perfect show. Something's going to happen. The cable's going to come out of your guitar. You're going to drop a pick. The light's going to get in your eyes, and you're going to be on the wrong fret. That's going to happen. You're never going to have a perfect show, but we're going to try.
Yeah.
And if something happens to you where, oh man, I hit the wrong pedal and it screwed me up, that's okay. Just get right back on track and keep trying to make the rest of the show perfect. And also have fun. And and those things don't seem like they work together, but they do, because we're all trying to present it in the best way we can, and the pursuit is what the fun thing is. It's trying to make a show, trying to put it off the way we want it to be.
Right. I don't know if this is like this for you, but I would assume that it is. For me, playing a really great show, the better it went, and no show is perfect, like you say, but the better it went, the less I remember. The only things that I typically remember are things that I want to figure out, like there's too much fuzz on my fuzz box for that thing, or there's too much delay, or there's too many repeats, or it's always, I'm never thinking of, I feel like, okay, this is like, that's the way it should be. It should be perfect. But I only remember the stuff. I can't remember anything about a gig other than what I perceive needs to be fixed.
Of course, I agree with that totally. It's when a show goes off great, you feel like, no, this is what I do for a living. It's supposed to be like that. It's when it's not like that is when it's disturbing.
Right.
That's the problem.
So the thing that I think there's many people that get to do the kind of thing that you're describing in a tribute band format, which is kind of what I'm doing. I perform with a Pink Floyd tribute group called Signs of Life, the American Pink Floyd. But the really special thing is when that parlays into going into the studio and making a new recording. The first tune that I heard was Countries and Counties. And it was just beautiful. I was like, man, that to me, that it feels like for maybe the first time since the original special lineup, that it felt like that's a 70s Yes album. That it sounded amazing, from the production to the
Thanks.
just fabulous. The whole album is great, but that was a standout track for me. I was like blown away. I was like, man, that's beautiful.
I didn't know we were gonna. I had no idea we were gonna do any original music together. I thought we'll just do this one tour.
Yeah,
it's kind of a novelty to have a legend like Jon Anderson play with a YouTube band. It's kind of a fun thing, and then that'll be it. And then after a show, we were in New Jersey, and we're catering after the show, and I'm eating a sandwich, and John's walking out. He goes, "We're gonna do an album." I went, "Huh?" This is like one of those things. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna do an album. It's gonna be great." I'm like, "With what? What are we gonna? How?" And he was just so certain, and he had a vision. And John thinks big, which is one of the things I admire about him.
Yeah.
He has he's taught me to open up my scope a little bit.
Yeah.
Because when I think of something, I tend to shrink it down to, well, what do I know I can do? What am I comfortable with doing? What's within my skill set? And John's thing is, no, forget all that. Think of the biggest thing you possibly can, and then figure it out.
Yeah.
And that, you know who else is like that? My manager, Steve Shank. He's another person who pushes me like that. We'll come up with a big project, and I'll be like, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And he said, you'll learn. You'll figure it out. And we do. We figure it out. We ask for people to show us things, and we watch YouTube tutorials on different technical things. We figure it out. We figure out how to get the product out there. But yeah, Counties. It was a song he just sent me randomly while we were rehearsing for the first tour, and he said, "Check this song out." And I listened to it. I said, "Oh, that's great. I like this song a lot. It's really cool." And he said, "Yeah, it needs better everything." And it wasn't the version he sent me was nice, but it was sort of mellow. It was a pretty mellow acoustic guitar with some orchestrations, a little new agey, for lack of a better term. And I said, this is a really nice song. And he said, yeah, it needs better bass, better drums, better everything. And I'm thinking, okay, you want me to do that? And he said, yeah, do it. And I said, how nuts do you want me to go with this? And he basically wrote me a blank check and said, go nuts. So this is before there was talk of doing an album. And I thought, I'm only going to get one shot at this. Jon Anderson is asking me to produce one of his songs. I have to put everything into this. I have to throw everything I've ever wanted to be in a Yes song into this 10-minute piece of music. And it wasn't 10 minutes when I got it. It was 10 minutes when I was done with it. But so I just went nuts on it, and I just gunned it. And I said, let me pretend that it's the 70s, and Jon Anderson just walked in with a song that he played the band on an acoustic guitar. And they said, okay, here's my tune, arrange it. And we thought, okay, how would this have been handled back in the day when they were making all these albums? And we, kind of put ourselves in that headspace and took it from there. And he also told me something randomly. He told me, I've been listening to a lot of Aaron Copland lately. And I thought, that's interesting. So I listened to some Aaron Copland, and I heard some of the common things he was doing and common instruments. Like he was using lots of xylophone, and he had a lot of those high string ostinatos that I heard, and just listening how he would use trumpets and French horns. So I said, let me take John's melody and arrange it for an orchestra in the way that Copland would do it. And I put that in there, and he heard that, and it blew his mind. He freaked out. He said, yes, more of that. And that with some of the more proggy bits, where we did some interesting syncopations between the bass and the keyboards and everything. And he really dug it. And then we went back and forth for a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I think there were 11 different versions of Counties and Countries where I'd send him something, and he'd say, that's great, do less of this, more of this. And I'd send it back, and then he would do an edit on his system. So can we loop this around? Sure. And we just had this very fast collaboration back and forth. And then before we knew it, we had a song, and we did a bunch of different mixes of it, and it sounded great. And then I didn't know what we were going to do with it, but I think for him, that was a trial to see what working with us would be like, because Jon lives on the opposite side of the country from us.
Right.
So we were doing all of this through Zoom, just like the way you and I are speaking right now. And just to see if it was a viable way of working. And we used that model to do the rest of the record, where he would send us stuff. But then it also got to the point where I said, John, we have some songs we'd like to send you. And he's like, yeah, send me whatever you got. And we'd send him a song, and then he would immediately send us back something we wrote with new lyrics on it, which was very exciting to just write something with your buddies who you've been playing with since high school, and then 2 hours later get it back with a Jon Anderson melody on top of it. That's a mind-bending experience.
Yeah, and it seems like there's so many things that go into play when you're bear with me for a second. I'm having an issue with my Zoom. It's
okay.
prompting me to upgrade into a new Zoom thing. Of course, they're asking me for more money, so bear with me for a second.
You want to call me back?
No,
Is there another one?
I think it's saying I've got 6 minutes to update this, or it's going to cut me off. I don't know. I've never seen that happen with.
Well, I think there's a 45-minute limit on these. So if you want, you can.
I think I got it here.
Okay, cool.
See, just don't want it to cut it off.
Mm-hmm.
We're on a roll here. Okay. So sorry, Richie.
No problem.
Okay, one moment. Your order is processing. Okay, this meeting now has unlimited meeting. I am so sorry, my friend.
No worries.
Okay, we're back. The one thing that is interesting, I've been doing a little bit of reading on Yes, and one of the areas where Rick and Jon didn't necessarily see eye to eye in the studio was Jon was of the mindset of, look, we can do anything if the vibes are right, and everything, kind of creating this environment that, look, let's not worry about the small stuff. Where Rick was more like, no, we have to get down. These passages are not being executed properly, and I think there was a situation in the late 90s where they're working on a tune and some of his keyboard parts had been eliminated or something. I'm reading this complete Yes story where I got this from. But what you're describing sounds to me like the kind of mind frame that he was in. Like, you guys had just done some great shows. You have this momentum and you have this camaraderie and this brotherhood. Why would you not want to parlay that into let's see what we can do. Let's think.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about what your perceived limitations.
Yeah.
That's so cool to me is the 15-year-old Richie must have been over the fucking moon to be in the studio making this, collaborating with your friends of 30 years. There's got to be many times when you're looking around at each other going, how the fuck did we get here? How did this happen? This is
I have moments. I've gotten more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
With and that was the big thing in the beginning. It was that, yes, me and Andy Ascalise would sit next to each other in the school bus with the headphone splitter listening to Close to the Edge. And yes, Jon Anderson is my hero. However, we have to work together, and I can't fanboy out anymore. I have to get serious and be able to do my thing. Yeah. And that did take a while, because it's hard not to freak out when he's 5 feet away from you singing in You and I, and it's gorgeous. I mean, even last night we played a show, and he's doing the sad preacher part. Yeah. I'm just watching him. I'm going like, damn, he's so good. He is so good. And I'm just taking it in, but you can't do that too long, because you go, oh wait, I come in 2 bars. Like, let me make sure I'm on the right pickup and all this. It's okay, all right. So I have to get used to it, but I allow myself a few moments in every show where I just drink that in, and I go, wow, like look at what happened to these kids from Staten Island. Look at what we got to do, and it's I never would have thought this was a possibility. Yeah, it was sort of in the back of our heads, especially Andy Ascalise kind of had the foresight when we started doing these different genres of music on the Band Geeks podcast with on YouTube. And he said, this is cool for us because we're showing people that we can do different genres of music. So if someone ever needs a band, we're ready to go. And I thought, yeah, that's nice. I was doing it because it's fun. It's an excuse to hang out with my friends. The other thing is, you know this, you don't really get to play with other musicians that are in different bands.
Right.
It's sort of a thing that's not done.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, you know, for example, I play in Blue Öyster called Tom Brislin Plays in Kansas, right? Me and Tom Brislin are really good friends. We chat all the time, primarily about Star Trek. But and he lives close to me, and we're friends, but we can't play together because we're in two different bands. But doing a YouTube band, there's no restrictions anymore. There's no, oh, I can't play with you. I'm committed to these gigs with this band, and you're on tour with this band. We have conflicting schedules. There's none of that. It's like, hey, it's almost like if you're professional musicians and just getting together and jamming is not enough of a reason to do it. Yeah. It's the whole, like, let's make a cool thing to put on YouTube that'll be fun. Yeah. That's enough of an excuse to get people together, people you would never get to play with, and say, hey, we're going to make a video, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to order some pizza, and we're going to joke around and eat pizza and make fun of each other and talk about our favorite Star Trek episodes. And then at the end of that hang, we'll have this cool thing we can show people and that we can post in a nice way to commemorate a fun day together. And it gave us that opportunity to do that. Yeah. That was my favorite thing about doing the Band Geek videos, is I would have people come over to my house that I never thought I could get over. There was no reason to have them. Yeah. We were doing Sweden Rock Festival with Blue Öyster called, and we were watching this, I think, are they Italian or Swedish? No, Swedish metal band called Twilight Force. And the singer was unbelievable. And then I heard her speak, and she had a New York accent. I'm like, this woman's from New York. So I reached out to her. I'm like, are you from New York? And she said, yeah, I'm on Long Island. I said, do you want to come over and record a Band Geek thing? And I showed her the videos, and she said, yeah. And then a few months later, this person's in my house, and we did a couple videos, and they were great. But it's an excuse to get these oddball combinations. It's great. And that was my favorite thing about it. But the fact that what Andy predicted actually happened, that's pretty wild too. Yeah. Andy had a little bit better. Andy saw a little further down the road than I did. I was just saying it's fun. And the funny thing is, when John first reached out to me and he said, we should play together, I said, cool, you want to come over to my house and do a Band Geek? Because that was the scope of all I could see. I was like, yeah, this is a fun thing. Come over, we'll have some pizza, it'll be great. But no, he's like, no, not like that.
I hope that when people are, because there's everybody that's watching through YouTube, all sorts of people and different demographics are watching your videos. But I hope for guys like us that are professional musicians that we kind of have to do our gig. And for the last 16 years, I've been doing the Pink Floyd thing and all that goes with that. Yep. Studying David Gilmour's rig and replicating his rig, working on all the tunes and all the parts, and then editing video for so you get really tunnel vision. But I would always, through that 16-year span, I'd always tune into you guys and go, God, I've forgotten how awesome that would be. So every once in a while we would pick a tune to work on for a sound check. We'd never get to play it live, but the idea of getting together and playing Heart of the Sunrise or something like that was just so intoxicating. So the long and short of it is, I hope that this has inspired some pro guys because we all have stuff that we just don't get a chance to do. Mm-hmm. But if you want to go out and learn some King Crimson tunes and you can get some people in your band or just some friends, do it. Learn
Yeah.
as much as you can because it's just so much fun and so rewarding. I get such a thrill seeing when you guys did I guess it was Siberian Khatru. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, you got to be kidding me. So great, it's just lovely to see that kind of stuff. And I just think that, I just turned 60. My runway is not as long as it is, it's much longer behind me than it is in front of me. So I keep thinking of these bucket list things of, things that I want to do.
Well, that's how this really started because I met Chris Clark on a Symphonic Queen gig we were both on.
Yeah.
And without even speaking to me, he sat down at the piano and grilled me and played every Yes, Genesis, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer song he knew.
Yeah.
Just because he'd seen us do that stuff on YouTube. And I just said, "You want to come over my house?" And he's like, "Yeah." And for me, Andy Graziano and Andy Ascalise, we always wanted to do Close to the Edge when we were in high school, but we were always missing one piece. It's either we didn't have a keyboard player who could do it, or we didn't have a singer,
Right.
or the drummer couldn't do it because there was just three of us. So we were always missing two pieces.
Yeah.
When I met Chris, I said, "Wait a minute, there's the missing piece.
Yeah.
We can do this music now." And so Chris said, "Oh, let's do something like Machine Messiah or something a little easier." I'm like, "No, we have to do Close to the Edge."
Yeah.
I've wanted to do this since I'm 15 years old. We must do this. And it's going to be grueling. It's going to be a long day. And it was, but we did it. And that's the video that Jon saw. Jon says he saw Heart of the Sunrise. When he might have saw that too, or might have seen that too, but when we first spoke, he was talking about the Close to the Edge video.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's because it was the same thing like you. Like, wouldn't it be great to do this song? And it's always, and that's the thing. Your band might be missing the piece.
Right.
Like, say your Pink Floyd band needs a female singer for something, right?
Yeah.
You can't, and okay, we don't have a female singer. I'm just for example here, right? Well, if you know one who's in another band, say, "Hey, we're gonna jam on this one song. We'll film it. We'll put it on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. You want to come over? We'll get some food, get some beers, and do the song." And it's a fun way to spend a day when you're not on the clock.
Right.
But that's what it has to be. It has to be fun. And anybody who ever came to do a Band Geek, I would tell them this. I'd say, "We're gonna have a good time. When you leave here, you're gonna feel good about what you did.
Yeah.
If you mess something up, we'll do it again. We'll do it as many times as you want until you're happy with it. That's it. This is not an under pressure gotcha trying to bring, especially as we started getting more and more well-known musicians in. I wasn't looking to say, "Ha ha, look, this person really couldn't do this in one take," or whatever. No, it's like let's have a good time. And
Yeah.
who cares what people say about it? It's like we're doing this for us. We're doing this because we enjoy spending time together. It's an excuse to hang out and jam. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. The fun factor is that's paramount. Yeah, the fun. I mean, it might when you're in the arcane stuff, it might seem like everybody is stressing out over getting the sounds right, learning the parts, but
Mhm.
yeah, when you at the end of the day, when you're nailing something, that there's very little that comes close to that as far as that sense of camaraderie of being able to do everything, to cross the finish line, especially something like the tune Close to the Edge. I mean, um, I've listened to it several, I mean, well, for my entire life really, but to sit down in earnest and learn it, it's certainly on my bucket list of tunes. But if there was any other bands that are, if it weren't for the thing with Jon Anderson, could you ever see a scenario where there would be somebody else from a legacy band, like in your fantasy, like, oh my God,
Uh, Anything could happen. We we like a lot of different things, and we're happy to play a lot of different styles of music. So yeah, I suppose it's possible. Um, it's just it's so bizarre that for all the people that it could have been,
Yeah.
like you're saying, it could have been pick any singer or musician, and that could have well, it could have been nothing. That's the first thing I need to say.
Right.
We could still just be doing what we were doing, and which would be fine because we enjoyed doing it. But it's so bizarre that it's Jon Anderson because Yes is my favorite band.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the three bands I listen to the most in my life are probably the Beatles, Queen, and Yes.
Yeah.
That's it, and I have if you go to my house, I have Beatles, Queen, and Yes stuff everywhere. That's those are my bands, and just getting the fact that we get to play music that we love with the person who played a huge part in creating that music, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. The different skills that you guys have that complement each other. The one thing that seems that you really are the benefactor of as a band is your ability, and I think this is coming from you, is the sound of what, because I think that that's such an overlooked thing is we're in a modern time, but you're trying to replicate some old sounds and bring in the modern technology,
Yeah.
going direct or, keeping, not having amps on stage or maybe having amps on stage. But your sense of engineering must have really played a big factor in this. I always noticed that with the YouTube videos. I thought, damn, this really sounds good. The fidelity of it sounds really spot on, besides the fact that you're playing it well, because in the world of YouTube, there's varying degrees of the audio being, you can tell somebody's playing something well, but when it's at a really high superior quality, most professional musicians go, shit, that's maybe one of the more impressive components of it. So was that a thing that ran parallel to your playing as your engineering sensibilities?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, to me, they're the same thing. They're just I can't really separate them anymore. It's part of playing music is having the right sound, and I just think, and I understand not everybody thinks that way. Um, some people are just, I show up with what I have, and that's it. That's the sound you're getting, and
Yeah.
that's fine. That's cool. It's just for me, it's always been part of it, and I just remember being in my early 20s playing bars with cover bands and having a rack effects processor with, if there were 35 songs in the set, there were 35 presets where
Yeah.
it was, I would just sit there for every song and dial it in. It's just something, it it was just part of the gig. And I think hearing some of these really uh, big time pro touring musicians, they say the same thing, that it's a part of being a live musician that a lot of people overlook. It's showing up to the gig with the right sounds, and it
Right.
goes a long way. You don't want to make that someone else's problem,
Right.
and especially if you want to get gigs. You don't want to be like, okay, here I am with my keyboard. I'm sure the sounds are in there. Let's find them together. It's helpful if you do that ahead of time and you show up and say, nope, I got it all. It's done. You know, or your bass sound or guitar sound or even drums. It's like, oh, you know what? We're playing this kind of music. I got this snare drum. This sounds accurate. This sounds correct to what we're trying to do. And I get that not everybody has the luxury of doing that, but nowadays, especially with the modeling stuff, it's pretty easy to drastically change your sound.
Oh
And
yeah.
keyboard, and you could get a keyboard for under $1,000 that has a ton of sounds in it, and they're all going to be pretty good.
Right.
Drummers have it hard because that starts getting expensive. Yeah, I got to get another kit. I got to get another snare drum. I got to get different cymbals. For them, it's a little trickier to But you know what? Like good drummers know how to tune their drums
Oh yeah.
the right way, where they'll get or muffle them or take out padding or deadening things. They're they're usually pretty good about that if they're conscientious. They'll be like, oh, you know what? I'm doing this kind of gig, so it needs this kind of sound. And we're always doing that while we're rehearsing. I mean, we sometimes like for the first year, Chris Clark didn't have his rig together while we were rehearsing, so everything was a placeholder sound.
Yeah.
So he would play everything on a Rhodes or a piano, and he's like, "Oh, I'll get it together later. I'll get it together later," which drove me nuts. Because to me, like even if you're playing the parts right, if they sound wrong, it's wrong. So
That's my Achilles heel. It drives me nuts not to hear the right sound because it's
yeah, I don't like it.
play the
And
right part. With to me, it's they're exactly married.
right, unless you're doing an interpretation, like if you're a band, like for example, do you know Eric Gales?
Oh yeah,
So he's one of the best guitar players on earth,
yeah,
and he does a version of "Don't Fear the Reaper." Now, Eric Gales has a very distinct guitar sound. Eric Gales doesn't have a multi-effects processor at his feet. He's got his tone, and he plays the gig with that tone because he's one of these guys who has a very signature voice on the instrument, and his band sounds like the way his band sounds.
yeah.
So when he does "Don't Fear the Reaper," he's doing it in his style, and it's a completely different version, and he's doing it he's making the song match his tone,
Yeah.
which is great. It's awesome. That's not what we're being asked to do. That's not the assignment for us. The assignment for us is to get it right so that people can have an experience that they can experience sort of what it might have been like back in the day.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. And with some upgrades because with John, when he used a Mellotron in the 70s, it was because he didn't have a string orchestra at his disposal at the time. So if there's a more modern sounding string thing, he'll probably prefer that because in his mind that was the original intent. So we'll make little adjustments for stuff like that, but the core stuff we try to keep as true as we can. But yeah, to answer, that was a long-winded answer to your question. Yes, to me they're the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the things that's where it gets a little fuzzy sometimes, even with some of the tribute groups. They do. You can tell that they're taking liberties and interpretations of things, and that's depending on the band. That can work out just fine. But Yes is really not one of them that you can really take that kind of liberty with tonally. And this is leading into my next observation is that the way that you've recreated Chris's tone, and it's your tone, but my God, it's just a thing of beauty.
Oh, thank you very much.
The way the bass sits in the mix, but the tone that has, I thought, man, that would take a long time to get it just. And I know that you're wildly in love with the Rickenbacker bass and all that goes into that. In fact, there's no bigger totem that you think of when you think of Yes than the Rickenbacker.
Yeah.
But the love and attention that you've put into that is just we thank you because
oh, thank you.
Chris's impact in the band. I mean, prior to his death, I think he was arguably he was the through line in the group.
Well,
and kind of the spiritual center.
Yeah, well, see, this is another thing we discuss a lot, is because you can say that there is a correct way to sound, like the way this music is supposed to sound, but there's 50 years of history here.
Yeah.
Starship Trooper in 1972 sounds very different than Starship Trooper in 1983.
Oh, yeah.
They sound really different. They're both correct.
Yeah.
Because they're both, yes, they're both correct. So you or us, we have to pick what we're going to do and just stick to that. And if someone says, oh, this doesn't sound right because it's not like the version I like, that's fine. That's correct. They're right. It's not. But we've picked a version or our own take on it where we're borrowing little elements from the different versions to make what we're doing for our presentation. And what I told the guys in the band, I said, anybody who says, oh, that's not the right version, they're right. They're correct, because there's a version of, pick any of these songs, there's a live version they saw that is very special to them. That's very important to them. And in their mind, this is the way the song needs to be performed every time, whether that be from a specific concert or from the record. You know, that's fine. We can't play every version of it. We have to pick one and just get better at playing that version. And we can't change to say, oh, I don't like that they're doing this from Yes songs or whatever. We can't change it every night, because then we'll never get better. We have to just stick to what we're doing, the decisions we've made, and just move forward with them. But even like Chris Squire's bass tone, that's gone through some drastic changes. If you listen to the Keys to Ascension album, there's chorus on the entire bass, the entire thing, which is something I do sometimes, but not all the time. Or then on certain albums, it was darker, like it was kind of woofy. Certain albums it was really clangy. Certain times it was distorted. So I pick, like, instead of trying to say, okay, we're doing something from the late 70s, I'm gonna go to a muddier sound. No, I just pick something that I like the best and make that the bass sound, because if I was making those adjustments throughout the show, it would drive our sound guy crazy. Yeah. And he wouldn't be able to park me somewhere in the mix. And I try to make my sounds mixable. But as a flip side to that, I also play in Blue Oyster Cult. Now, Blue Oyster Cult doesn't try to sound like the record at all. Blue Oyster Cult has always been a reflection of who was in the band at the time. Right. And that's what the band sounds like, which is also great. Yeah. And to have an impact on what a band sounds like, you know, when Danny Miranda joined the band sounded different, because Danny's playing is different than the bass players that came before him. Yeah. Or when Bobby Rondinelli joined, or when Jules Rodino joined. All these people have a different influence, and that's a totally different thing. And I'm very lucky that I get to play in two bands that approach it so differently. Yeah. Whereas playing with Jon, we're trying to present the music almost like classical musicians, where this is what it is, this is what it's supposed to sound like. Yeah. With Blue Oyster Cult, it's here is who is in the band now, and this is the music's gonna conform to the band, which is it's great to get to experience both of those things. But with the Jon tour, as we get more comfortable with the music, and as Jon and the Band Geeks, we get comfortable with each other, I'm noticing we're picking up certain things where we're almost making our own versions of these songs. Yeah. And unintentionally, just from them being, just from playing so much together. That's something that I asked Eric Bloom from Blue Oyster Cult. I said, did you intentionally change the live arrangements of these songs from the records? Like, was it a decision saying, oh, well, it's not going to sound like the record, so let's do something different? He told me, no. Initially, you try to play it like the record, and then over time, it evolves. It evolves into its own version. And for Blue Oyster Cult, that's over 50 years of a song evolving. With us, it's 3 years, but I'm starting to notice little changes of how we would play things in 2013 to how we play them now, and how, wait a minute, these little variations I'm hearing, these aren't coming from a Yes version, they're coming from us. And even something like True Messenger, which is from the True album, if you listen to True Messenger, the original recording, and you listen to how we play it now, it's pretty different.
Yeah.
We've made lots of little alterations to have a completely separate live version.
Yeah.
So even though I want to say like we're trying to present this as a preservation band with the original document, that's not even true anymore, because whether we like it or not, the music is morphing around us a little bit.
Yeah, and that's ultimately the beautiful thing about you recording an album is now you've got a documentation of this period of in time, and hopefully there'll be more recordings. But it's really cool to think, okay, all these different iterations of the Band Geeks. Now you're into the phase where you're writing with the artist who's
Yeah.
now part of your band, and you're starting to see how that the original tunes are starting to take shape and become things, and that's got to be probably the highest point, that or one of the highest points in the evolution of doing this, is recording something, going out there and playing the songs and having them have that kind of
Oh yeah.
function.
Watching people sing along to Counties and Countries or Once Upon a Dream,
Yeah.
it's incredible, and I feel so lucky that I get to play that song for people with Jon,
Yeah.
and see them sing stuff that we wrote.
Yeah.
Something that started as a Word document on my computer. It's like now people in the audience are singing. It's crazy. Yeah, it's that to me. That's something I didn't even know was an option.
Yeah.
When this whole idea was floated, like, oh, it would be great. It would be great to be on stage with Jon and play Awaken. It'd
Yeah.
be really cool to play Heart of Sunrise with Jon. Oh, that's the song I missed from before. We knew Heart of the Sunrise in high school. I knew I was forgetting one.
Yeah.
But yeah. But doing a 16-minute epic that we wrote together on stage,
Yeah.
that's an option. Yeah, sign me up. I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah. It harkens back to the 15-year-old Richie would be, gobsmacked to know that and it's a very, if a fan comes up and they're a young musician and they're inspired by what you've done, all that you can tell them is it's a very circuitous route. There's really no straight line to any of this stuff. You never can plan any of these things. You just end up. The big through line, I think, is even when there wasn't any reciprocation or some sort of remuneration of being paid to learn these tunes, you're just doing it for the love and putting all this hard work in, not knowing if 500 or 50,000 people are going to see it. But when you do the work, great things happen. You know what I mean? When you put in the time and the effort and the energy, and you have a group of people that are pushing in the same direction, there's no limit to what you can do.
The other thing with that is some people will see bands doing what we did and say, okay, we have to make YouTube videos now to get this end result. As soon as you do that, you're doomed. If you're going to spend the time on doing something which there is no money in, like you just said,
Yeah.
it has to be fun.
Yeah.
Do it because you want to do it. Don't do it because you're expecting some end result. Because when you don't get the end result, you'll be disappointed. Make sure the journey is the fun part. Make sure the process of getting your friends together and playing is what you enjoy. And then everything above that is just icing.
Yes.
That's my advice to people who ask me about it. And someone will say, "Oh, I started a YouTube channel and I haven't gotten the results I wanted." I said the fun of it has to be doing it. If it's not fun for you, don't do it. There are better jobs. If you're going to do something not fun to get paid, do something not fun. There are things more lucrative than making YouTube videos.
Yeah. That's the thing. The part of the learning and expanding to being a better musician, that's the reward,
Yeah.
and having fun in the process. I learn I you are episode 2 of season 8, and I've been very blessed to do this. But I learned so much, and the human stories on where people have their evolution of things is just incredibly fascinating. And as soon as I heard I was like, man, I have to get Richie on the show because of all the people that I've talked to thus far, I think he's the most kindred spirit to me as far as that's exactly, the kind of attitude that I have, doing things because you just love doing it,
Yeah.
sitting down and writing something out and or isolating a guitar track on Moises, that new AI thing, and sitting here with a quad cortex trying to program something and try to get it just right. And then, not because I'm getting paid to do it, but just because I love fucking doing that and trying to learn new stuff and get better. And because I'm not getting any younger. So.
Well, yeah, it's the pursuit that makes it fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. You've been incredibly generous with everything. All right, man. Well, I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks, Rich. Thank you for tuning into the Guitar Hang podcast. That's a wrap for season 8, episode 2. Massive thanks to Richie Castellano for being an incredible hang and a powerhouse player, inspiring humor, and an all-around good guy. If you enjoyed the episode, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, leave a quick review, and share it with your friends. I've dropped links to Richie's project